Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we go at our Laravel Spotlight series. We have Shen Rosenthal. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
It's fine.
Okay, yeah. So let him pronounce himself.
Yeah,
Shen.
Shane Rosenthal.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Oh, sorry. Let him introduce himself.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Sorry.
Hi, everybody. Shane Rosenthal. I'm one of the founders, Native PHP for mobile, and the creator of Native PHP for Android specifically. So I did all the work behind Android, amongst other things I've done in the past. But I think that's what we're talking about today. So we'll keep it short.
Right, right. So, like when you started working with PHP, I mean,
PHP, I guess it was around 2012 or so.
mm,
I did. My dad was a developer since the 70s, and I actually did door to door sales for a while. And my car broke, and I didn't know what to do. And he actually got me into like I was just doing like logos and little things like that for a while. And then I realized pretty soon that I needed to like learn or adapt some back end technology to make more money to really advance my career. And I started doing WordPress themes, and then I started doing some custom WordPress plugins. And one of my colleagues told me about this thing called Laravel in maybe early 2013. And at first, I didn't really think about it too much, but then I had a project that kind of required something better than WordPress, and so I took a stab at it, and I've been with Laravel ever since. Clearly,
that's nice. So it is like similar to my story as well. I mean,
yeah.
okay. So, like, so what makes you like build a Android app with the PHP?
Say again.
What makes you build a like Android app with the PHP language? I mean,
What what inspired that? I think that
yeah.
so Simon and we've been friends for maybe a couple of years now. And actually, I try to remember when I first met him, and I don't really remember. I know like I don't know. I gave him some $20 on GitHub sponsor a few years ago or something, and I think that was the first interaction I had with him. But when I was at Laracon US Nashville in 2023, when um, Marcel had the talk on native PHP.
Mm.
I actually had back surgery later in the year, and I was really in a lot of pain, but I saw that talk coming up and I stayed for it. Aaron Francis was right after, and I miss Aaron Francis. Sorry, Aaron. But um, I did go back and watch Aaron's. But I thought that when you say native, I think React Native. I think just native. Native to me means mobile. And when I heard native PHP, I was like, oh my God, they did it. They cracked it. They figured out how to do phone apps from Laravel. And that's like the most exciting thing. Come to find out, that's not what they meant. And so I met with Marcel and I met with Simon, and they both had kind of conflicting notions around if this would actually work on a mobile device. Marcel was like, the binaries are going to be way too big. The app stores are not going to approve PHP, whereas Simon was like, I think I've got it. And I'm like, yeah, Marcel said you can't do it. And Marcel is pretty smart. And so in my mind, I'm like, he's not going to do it. And then,
Mhm.
Marcel's like, yeah, he can't do it. And I'm like, and then Simon's like,
Mhm.
no, I think I got, and we went back and forth for several months. I remember at 2024 Laracon in Dallas, Marcel and I actually stayed at the same hotel. So we Ubered around Dallas a lot. We hung out quite a bit. We had a couple of conversations around it, and it was like, it's just not really possible. And then right after Laracon, Simon and I and gentleman Stephen Fox created a podcast, The Bucket. And we got much closer as friends. And in one conversation offline, he was like, guys, I did it. And I'm going to be talking at Laracon EU, which was in February, um, about it. And it's cool. And my very first question to him was like, so you got this for iOS. Any company that wants to adopt this, for this to really be successful, you have to have it on Android. So when are you doing Android? He's like, nah, man, it's gonna be 6 months, a year, something like that. It's gonna take some time. I have to do a lot more for iOS, and this was in January this year. So that didn't sit well with me for a couple days. I thought about this and thought about it, and I was like, let me just do it. Let me just start working on it. And he explained to me fundamentally what needed to happen. One of the things I'm most proud of is that no one else has contributed to my code for Android yet. I'm the only one that's touched any of it. They have conceptually, him and Marcel have conceptually given me like, this is how it should work to be in step with iOS. But I've
Mm,
created everything for Android myself, which is, just for me, like as a career status thing, I guess, is like really happy about that. That it's not like I started something and then, which we do intend to actually open this up at some point and have people much smarter than me come in and do some work on it. And that's part of like
right.
the whole project. We want this to be robust. We want this to be as good as possible. And all egos to the side for that. But as it stands right now, he would just explain, this is how you have to compile PHP. You have to make it into a
Mm,
C library. There's no PHP artisan serve. There's no huge binaries. And actually we don't even
mm,
know, or we didn't even know until it's actually really fully built into a single app, how big it's going to be. I had no idea, right? So I
mm,
was really, really happy to see the very first APK. I posted a picture on Twitter about it. Was 35 megabytes, fully loaded. It's a fresh Laravel project, but it's got all the binaries and all of the Java code and Kotlin code that you need to get this to run. It's only 35 megabytes, so I'm really happy about that. It could have been 800 megabytes. I had no idea.
right.
So um, but the
Mm,
way we built it was we tried to streamline it and make it minimal and the least amount that we needed to make things run properly.
right.
So that's long story short, but
Mm. So it's like, see, I think it's our the PHP apps are taking less memory than Tauri and Electron apps. I mean, those React Native apps.
yeah, I don't have a lot of experience with Electron or Tari. As far as like memory is concerned, I don't see there being any sort of, I haven't seen any overutilization or any spikes or anything like that. It's not glitchy. It's not very slow.
Mhm. Mhm.
Even like on an older device, I tried some things and it's
Right,
the way that it works, essentially, it is running a web view. We are building a Laravel project, right? Laravel compiles
right,
down to HTML, CSS, JavaScript for the front end. What better to run that than a web view? Now, we do have some plans and some thoughts and ideas around compiling some things into more native
native. But
UI. uh I mean, we're just starting, so we're tossing the idea around already about that, but
right,
um yeah, but there's not much of a delay. It is an HTTP request. It is a just a network request that's going to the back end
right,
of the app, but yeah, and you'll see in the demo like how quick things are on a real device and also in the emulators and stuff. So
right. I heard from from my some friends that it is snappy. I mean, it's it's a lot snappy. That one app, I think you were talking about, which was it is like it has all the features
yeah,
till we
we
have in the
created
native.
it's called the kitchen sink app.
Mm-hmm.
We've opened it up to some beta testers, and I'm in the approval process with the Play Store right now, and then we're gonna actually have that on the App Store here in the next week or two as well. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll have links on the doc site, and it will open source the repo so everybody can see exactly how to do everything.
Right. Mm. I also heard that you haven't tell everyone that you are building the Android, and suddenly you tell them I have this. Everything is like built already, right? Kinda. Mm.
Yeah, it was fast, right? It was a lot of work.
Yes.
I mean, you can ask my son, my girlfriend, like I'm generally up till 1 or 2 in the morning, and I'm generally up around 7, and I've been
Ah,
just eating, living, breathing, bleeding, this,
yeah.
nonstop. So it's been a lot of work, but yeah,
Mm.
it's addictive because you're working on for example, just getting PHP to compile against the Android NDK, and that took several weeks
Mm.
just to get that far. And
Yeah.
when you finally get it, you have this hooray moment, and it's addictive.
Yeah.
You have to keep going with it. So
Right. When you are doing something that no one have done already, that is more, I mean, take you into the like loops, right? And yeah.
yeah,
So
for sure.
what is the story behind Laracon Online? Sorry, Laravel Online. Laravel Online. Yeah.
So Laravel Online, I think to some degree, I always wanted a YouTube channel, some sort of presence in the community because I've been involved with it for so long, 12 years now or so that, but
Mm.
I didn't have any kind of, I see a lot of people coming into Laravel. I just see a market there, not a revenue streaming market or anything like that, but a bunch of people that want to learn, need to learn the right ways and to avoid the wrong things of doing things. And so it started after Laracon 2023 when I saw PHP, native PHP from Marcel. I came home and I just started the channel. If you look at the first 8 videos on my channel, it's all native PHP. I just hit record. I think I did 8 videos in 2 days, and
Mm.
I went from 0 to I think like 1,200 subscribers in a week or something like that. So people were
Wow.
clearly hungry and really excited about native PHP. And yeah, like I said, I had back surgery later that year, and I took a little break from that, and I'm starting to get back into posting again. It's kind of hard to regularly with the schedule that I've got with this, but I think whenever there's something new and exciting, I think that's one place I can post things. But we also just created a native PHP official YouTube channel as well, so we can share links or
Yeah.
something with everybody.
We can see that YouTube channel in our comments, right?
Oh, okay,
I think
perfect,
Simon will be there, I guess. I don't know.
cool.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, looking.
Hmm.
What's up, Simon? Hey.
Hmm. So what you do when you are not doing native PHP, right?
Sleeping or eating right now.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
no, I've got a lot of hobbies actually. So I am a metalhead. I love going to metal concerts. And my son is now he's 15, almost 16, and so I started taking him to some concerts recently, and that's been really fun to hang out with him. And I think the other really big hobby I've got, which I haven't done in a while, but I'm also a pilot, and I fly small airplanes just for fun. I don't work for an airline or anything like that. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, so I like when some people visit from out of town or something to take them up and we can fly around downtown Charlotte and
Right.
check things out. So that's pretty fun. That's if I think
Mm.
if ever I'm ready to retire someday, that's probably what I'll do is probably instruct because I like to teach and fly. So I'll probably be a flight instructor just because it sounds, it ticks all my boxes. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So one last question. Uh, After that, you can like continue with your sharings. Okay. So the last question is being a bit kind of like mm, complicated for everyone, right? It is something like, see, there are lots of PHP developers, and there is something going on that PHP is not now working, and everyone is moving to other technologies and all, right? So which are still in PHP but uncertain about PHP, right? So what is the advice for them from you?
Um, well, if I would listen to those people, I would have quit doing PHP a long time ago. And here I am with a hat
Right.
and the Laravel shirt. I think that it's projects like this. There's a million other ones, but it's
Right.
projects like this that keep PHP alive. And it's PHP being alive that creates more projects like this. Simon was telling me there's some natural law that states as long as something has been around, you can expect it to be around at least that much longer. PHP's been around 30
Right.
years. It's going to be around another 30 years. It's again things like this that make it stronger, make the community stronger. I've been in other communities, tech communities. Nobody acts like people do at Laracons. People are all in. They're the nicest people. They're always ready and willing to help out. And
Right.
I think that's probably one of the bigger pieces that keeps it going. Of course, there's other communities, other PHP communities, but my biggest experience has been with Laravel, and I go to Laracon now not to learn, but to hang out with friends. And I'm excited to
Right.
go to other Laracons now. I think that native PHP will open up doors for myself and for Simon to go to other Laracons around the world and make more friends and meet
Right.
more people. And I don't see PHP going anywhere. If I have anything to
Right.
do with it, I will make sure,
Yeah.
if I have to.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hold the fort down.
So we will be also waiting for you at Laracon India, right? One
Yeah,
day.
that
Uh,
sounds fun. I would
so
go.
so you already told, right, us that you want to go, like you want to visit the Laravel India, right? I mean on the Simon stream, right? So
Yeah,
you, Peter, and Simon and Marcel can come and as a native PHP team, right?
I would love to.
Uh, yeah.
That would be amazing.
Okay.
When is
Okay.
Laracon in India? Is usually in the spring. Is that right?
March, Feb or
March. Yeah.
March,
Yep.
right? And yeah, it's a bit hot, but yeah, when it, I mean, around 30 or 34, right?
Cool.
Okay. Right now, and maybe right now it is around 44, 42, right? In the afternoon, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have some comments already, and we are not gonna take them right now. So if anyone have asked any question, we will gonna take at last, right? So keep be at last. I mean, yeah. So yeah, we'll be uh, give you whole everything to you right now. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So you
All
can
right.
now go ahead. I will be there, right? So, but
Okay. Thanks. So yeah, my talk intentionally is going to be a little different than Simon's. If you saw Simon's, I want to show you how easy it is to get up and running with native PHP on a real Laravel app. So I've got two very important pieces here. One more is coming into place, but we've got Herd and we've got the browser, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new Laravel project. I'm going to go with Livewire as my flavor of choice. We're going to call this Artisans. I'm not going to use Volt, and we'll just go ahead and create that. While that's booting up, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to, move this over and switch to PHP Storm. Here we go. We'll give that just a second to boot up. And we'll open this in the browser. There we go. Close that down. Okay. So with a fresh Laravel, let's say new, we'll let that index. That's going to eat a little bit of memory. So the fresh Laravel app, to get native PHP up and running, first thing we have to do is go into our composer.json. I'm just grabbing some the repositories that you'll need. And yeah, we'll just give that another second here. I said repositories, it's a single repository. Yeah, here we go. And we're just going to copy that into our composer.json. We'll close this, we'll go to terminal, and we're going to do our composer require native PHP mobile. Cool. So I think now is not a bad time. I was going to do it on this talk anyway, but if you notice something kind of cool here, we're actually using version 1 for native PHP mobile. So I am pretty happy and proud to announce that May 2nd is the official release date, but if you're an early access member, if you've already purchased the license, this is actually available now. And you can go to the website, follow the directions there, and you can start doing this too. So it's kind of exciting. Docs are actually being worked on. I did like a pretty good PR this morning actually, and I'm just going to go through some approval with some of the beta testers and get that going. But technically, it's everything you're seeing here today you can now do. So yeah, so we've got it installed here. Let's go ahead and do something cool. Let's go into our welcome. And let's get rid of this. And let's bring in Vite. And let's get rid of some HTML here and just strip this down to like just bare minimum stuff, right? So we're gonna do, I'm gonna make a new component here. So PHP, Livewire, make, we'll just call this test. Cool. And then we can, as AI is already suggesting, just bring in test, right? And let's make sure this is working. Let's do an npm install. I think that it's probably already done. And then let's do nvm use v22 just to make sure. And then install. Yeah, it's done. And then we'll do a npm run dev. And we should be able to refresh and we see nothing. Perfect. Let's go into the blade here and we'll do let's do a flux button. And I want to make a note right there. That's probably the first thing I want to mention here. For Android, we are using a web view. We're using a web view on iOS also, but for Android, Flux uses Tailwind v4. Tailwind v4 has all these at theme, at CSS, at all these at things that the older browsers on, I think it's SDK 28 and below, or below 28, don't really render. They don't render at all. Your CSS would be broken technically in older devices. So initially, I built out what some of you already know about the kitchen sink app, which I'm going to demo here as well. I did it all in Flux, but I wanted people to see that it's not a native PHP for mobile limitation. It's a CSS limitation inside of older browsers. So I redid everything in Tailwind v3 and just made my own kind of components for all that stuff. So yeah, we'll take a look at that later. But for today, I like Flux and I want to use Flux. So let's use Flux here. And I'll give myself a little bit more room so we can do that. Yeah, chime up again if that's still not good, but we'll keep going. So yeah, let's go back here just because I like command clicking onto things. We'll go into the class and we're just going to make a function, a test function, and we're not going to dd test. We're going to do a some native functionality. So we have this dialog facade. Right now we have two facades. It's dialog and it's system, and I'll show you those in just a minute. And they're kind of intuitive, right? System is going to be anything that's system related, biometrics, camera, voice recording eventually, anything that's going to be part of the system itself. Dialog is like your alerts, your share, your toast, etc. So if I have this running here, so it's already refreshed, but if I click this, you're going to notice nothing's actually happening, right? Well, it's because we're in the browser. And what we did is we actually took, we wanted to make this we still want to make this a very nice experience for everybody. We are checking against your PHP that you're running, whatever device you're running this on. If that native PHP toast, in this case, doesn't exist, we're not doing anything about that. This is only going to work there so that you're not getting all these errors in the browser or whatever. So you can really build out your UI and your user experience for the most part in the browser. You don't have to wait for any compilation or anything like that. And it just kind of builds out, right? So there's actually, yeah, now that we've got this in place, let me go ahead and grab a couple things that we need for the next part before we install this on the actual device. And that is just a couple env keys. So scroll down here and I'll just paste this in. So we've got our native PHP app ID. We've got this app version and an app version code. The version code actually isn't necessary until you start publishing to the App Store. They expect this to be something different every time you make a new version. This app version, they also look at that, but it's really more internal. You can really write whatever you want to here, but it's you know, we recommend going with like semantic versioning, right? So 001. A note about this. Well, actually, let's go ahead and just build this and push it up real quick. I'm going to change the app name also to Artisans. All right, so I'm going to get out of this. I'm going to do an npm run builds, and then I'm going to run this command, php artisan native install. Now, on a Mac, which I'm on, it's going to offer you to do Android, iOS, or both. On Windows, which I took like 2 weeks to get everything working for Android, on Windows, you cannot install iOS apps. You cannot create iOS apps on Windows or Linux. Linux is untested, but that's something I plan to get to very soon. So you're not even offered this selection on a Windows machine. It's just going to start building Android the way that you would expect. But since we're here, I'll just go ahead and do both. That's going to bring down everything that we need, all of the Swift code, all of the Kotlin code, all of the PHP libraries, all of the dependencies that we require for all these things. And it's going to put it inside of this native PHP directory here. And you can see we have Android, we have iOS. It's all in place and everything's here. But the whole point of this really is just to serve the app out of and for building and stuff like that. You should never really have to look in here. You're free to, obviously, but we tried and we are going to continue to try to make this as Laravel centric as possible. We don't want, we want to use, you know, Laravel events. We want to use env keys. We want to use config files to do everything. So one of the other things that this actually built for us is this native PHP config. And so you can see there's some sensible defaults here, but there's a lot of things that you can override as well. There's also like some permissions and some, you know, excluding certain env keys so that they don't end up in your app so people can't get to them. You know, permissions, enabling or disabling permissions, etc. And that's just going to help build the app for each device. There's certain things that the app stores don't really want you to have permissions or require permissions if you're not actually using them. So if you're building an app that doesn't need camera, for example, or biometric, then just keep this at false and you're not going to have problems with the app stores later. Now that that's installed, let's go ahead and run it. So it's PHP Artisan Native run. I know this is probably a little small. I guess I can zoom in here. So cool. So I'm going to run this on Android. And I believe, well, we'll see. We're going to do a debug build. And we're going to let it do its thing. So what this is actually doing right now, it's taking the entire Laravel application. It's taking out a bunch of stuff that we know that you're not going to need. .git files, node modules, anything inside of our own package that's like this you know, Kotlin and iOS code, you're not going to need it inside of the app. So we're trying to make the APK, in this case, as small as possible, right? And it's going to take all those files, it's going to zip them up, and it's going to put them inside of a directory inside of, let me pull up the emulator here. Give me 1 second. I just got to find out where this is at. Yeah. All right. So here we go. That's the app. It just booted up. It was just on the wrong screen. In fact, if you have emulators installed, let me go ahead and do this. We'll take just 1 more second here. And yeah, that should have been closed. Oh, that's why it's on my actual device. I didn't mean to do that. I have my actual device plugged in. So let me go ahead and unplug that for now and run this again, because I want you to see the experience here. You can say PHP Artisan Native run. I can also specify that I want it on Android, and I can also say that I want the build to be debug. So we'll do that. And then it's going to ask me, where do I want this to boot up? Because I already had a device booted up, it was plugged in. It just did that naturally by default. If I had an emulator already running as well as a physical device, it will ask me which one I want to run this on. And if I don't have anything going at that time, then it's just going to ask me which emulator I want to launch. And so inside of Android Studio, you can go into Device Manager, you can click plus, you can create a virtual device and go through the whole process to create your virtual devices. So this just booted up, and I'll put it over here, and we'll take a look at what this is doing on the device. And I think if I do this quick enough, it will actually boot. Sometimes it actually hangs if you're locked, because it won't boot up that device, but it won't boot up the app inside of the device. But I think it's going to work this time because I caught it quick enough. Cool. Installing, and this gets to 100%, and it should be done. Build successful. And there it is. So the first thing I want you to see actually is this, once this is done loading, is inside of the app drawer. Give that just a second. All right, there's the app. Let's go ahead and do this. I have a bunch of apps here, obviously, but you can see we've got artisans here, and that came directly from my env. That came from the app name inside of my env. So anything you put there is what it's actually going to write as here. So let's go ahead and go into it. If you notice too, I had that little loading screen that took a second, and I just want to emphasize here this debug mode that we're on here. So this app version, again, it's gonna extract that zip file whenever you boot this up, if it's either in debug or if the semantic version is the same as the previous. We did that on purpose. I'd spent a lot of time actually around thinking through this and like how we want to handle these things. So if this is on like 0.0.1 and I deploy it, the very first time it's going to take all those Laravel files, and it's going to extract those the first time. If I run this again, or if I close the app and reboot it, it's not going to extract. It's not going to PHP artisan migrate. It's not going to clear cache because you're on this version, right? We can skip all those things. I actually tricked my own self keeping this version the same thing and like wondering why my changes weren't taking effect. So I built this. I had to keep bumping up the version number while I was building things. But if I just make this debug, we're checking for that specific string inside of the version file, and as long as it's debug, it's going to always do that. So development is going to be a little bit slower because you're always going to be updating the Laravel files. However, when you do semantic versioning, your users are not going to experience such a long delay, and you can see that when you start building this stuff out yourself. But you know, there's probably a lot of suspense here around the test button. So let's go ahead and just click that, and we'll see we have our native Android toast coming from Livewire inside of Laravel. You know, with really no touching any Kotlin code or anything. It's just env keys and some other stuff. So, but wait, there's more. Let me show you this this kitchen sink app. I'm going to go ahead and plug my computer, my phone in. We'll unlock it. And clear all. All right. Okay. So, and I'm going to actually share some of the code behind here so I can talk through a couple of these things. All right. And let's go ahead and bring the app up. And go to running devices and select my actual device here so that we can see it. I'll go ahead and close the emulator down, and we can shrink Android Studio. We can just look at, this is my actual device. So everything you see on the phone is what you see inside the emulator, and we can demo some of this stuff. So Yeah, let's just begin. We're going to go inside of NativePHP. I think one of the first things that Simon and I were both aligned on, and we had a lot of questions around it, is regarding MySQL database. Why don't we support MySQL? And how do I connect my app to a database? Well, we do offer SQLite support. The database is local. So if you have a million people install your app, they each are running their own database. Any data that you want your users to have that's external, you must create an API. And this is not like our constraint or our own opinion about things. This is what app developers have done and have had to do forever, because if you put your database credentials inside of your ENV, it's going to end up on the devices of all your users. Technically, they can go in, they can find your URL, they can find your password, they can wipe your database, because if they can access it, they can control it. So what I did here is I actually have a kitchen sink API that's running on Laravel Cloud, and it's really just there for authentication, a couple other little things that I'll show you here in a second. But this is actually authenticating against the API. So if I type in something wrong here, right? Let's do this. And just a bad password, it's going to give me this toast that's invalid email or password. So that's actually authenticating against the API backend. But with a good email and password, please don't spam me. Oh, I was typing and I shouldn't have been. We're logged in. So what that does is it reaches out to the API server. It is generating a Sanctum token and passing it back to your app, and we're storing that in session. Any future calls, and I've got a little HTTP macro that I created called Kitchen Sink that does all that legwork for me, but I just like surround each call to the backend with it requires a token or it doesn't require the token. I have a middleware for that. So it's basic Laravel stuff, and we do intend to create a way to make that very easy for people, a package that you can install on the back end and on the front end, or in this case, the app that does a lot of that legwork for you. Because it's going to be a very common pattern when you're building these apps out. So that token is getting stored in session, and then when I log out, that actually clears it. And all of these routes here, they're actually behind that middleware. And so if you don't have that token in session, then you can't access it. It just brings you back to the login screen as you would expect. So first things first, let's talk about this. We're going to take a photo, and this is actually pulling up me on my camera right now. Let me switch this around to this, and we'll take a picture. Cheesy grin. All right. We'll hit the OK button, and yep, that shouldn't have happened. We'll go ahead and try this again real quick. I think I hit the button on accident. So we'll load this up. We'll go to camera. It's inside of system. We'll take a photo and switch it around and click the OK button. Here we go. All right, there's the cheesy grin. Now I want to take a minute here to explain something. This is all going to be in the docs. It already is in the docs. We just haven't released it yet. The way that this is working, let me go into the code here. App, Livewire, system, camera. All right, so I'll zoom in for you guys too. All right. There are synchronous and there are asynchronous functions inside of NativePHP for mobile. Camera, calling the camera is a synchronous, not asynchronous, but it's synchronous, meaning we're just opening up the intent of the camera. When the camera is done, when it's taken the picture, we actually broadcast an event out to both your front end and your back end. So there's a Laravel event that's broadcast, that's called, that you can just listen to in the back end of Laravel, and it's all in the docs, and do whatever you want to with that. Since I'm using Livewire, I'm just calling it here, just like you would expect with Livewire. So on, and then everything for the front end is actually prefixed with native : and then whatever that class is. So this is photo taken class, and this photo taken class, this is what fires to the backend as well. And it's just providing this path. That path is the actual file on the device. So we have that path, we base64 encode it, we get the MIME type, and then we're just setting, like Livewire would, this data URL, and we're setting it in the view. So in the view, we're just setting it here. So it's just an image with a data URL, little, some CSS or whatever. That is where you would hook into, like, you could use a storage facade, and you can like just do anything that you would think that you would want to do. You can send it to the API as an image. You can do anything you want to with Laravel with that image, but that's asynchronous tasks. There's a couple other ones that are asynchronous. So biometric scanner, push notifications are asynchronous. Alerts are on their way to being asynchronous because we want a callback function that you can define a callback function for when the user selects the button. So those are, again, all in the docs. You can take a look at those. Pretty proud about how we handled that. That's actually one of my favorite features about this, because instead of like burning a PHP process, right? Like just having it sit idle in the middle of a request for an indefinite amount of time, we're handling it in the way that you would expect it to be. So we're not burning the battery, we're not overheating your phone, it's keeping it light, it's keeping it fast, it's keeping your users having a great experience as well. So let's go to Flashlight. So I'll click this. You can see my camera. I'll click it, 3, 2, 1, and we got a flashlight. We've got push notifications I'll come back to in a minute, and there's an explanation around why. I don't know if you can hear this, but I'll click vibrate. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear it. I think my mic might be doing noise canceling, but it is vibrating. We've got biometric scanner. So this is another asynchronous task. We're going to request biometric ID. You can't see it on the screen, but you can see it here, right? But I'm going to hit like the wrong fingers and it's going to fail. But if I hit the right finger, then we've got the callback, that native callback is coming back into the event is being broadcast back to the front end. We've got some dialogue stuff. So we've got share, not Sunny and share, just, share. And then that takes 3 parameters, like the title, the body of the message, and then the URL you're trying to share. We've got alerts. So we'll click alert, and this is just a native alert. And we've got toast. Simon actually did quite a bit of work on iOS, getting all of these aligned recently, so that, and I'll show you a little bit of iOS here as well. I think he'd be upset if I didn't, to be honest. So we'll just say hi, Simon, because I'm sure he's watching. And there we go. We've got a toast, and because we're using Livewire, we have all the magic of passing in parameters and all that stuff. So while I do the next part, let me actually go ahead and get this running on iOS. It's actually already installed here, and I didn't want to take any more time. But this native PHP kitchen sink app is actually running on iOS. This is in a simulator, but it's also on my phone. And I'm just going to open it up. Now I only have one login for myself here. I could have made another one to demonstrate this, or like some of the things that we're doing, but let's go ahead and do email and password, login, and that's wrong. So let's try it again. Cool. And we wanted to see if this would even work. And we were both really surprised. I don't know why, but we were both surprised, and very happily surprised, to see that, well, we've got this Laravel reverb. There was literally no additional, nothing that we had to really do to make this work other than set up a reverb server and put in the env keys, etc. So let's just say hello world from Android and hello back at ya from iOS. So that to me is cool. That is really cool, actually, that we can chat and we can do all that. And it's just like, real stuff that you would use inside of any app. And it's all done with Laravel. And Simon Hamp is watching. Hi, Simon. I think what's really cool is because we're using Reverb and we're using these native functions, technically, and there's no demo here yet, but conceptually, we can actually fire off native functions through Reverb. So your imagination is kind of the limit there, as what you can really do or expect to do from within, a Laravel application, now touching a native device. So I thought that was really cool. I think there was one more. Oh, I was going to show push notifications. So this takes a minute, because the way that this works is, I'm going to click this button, and that's going to take, we're using Firebase for now, at least. And again, I'll document on how to use this, but we're using Firebase. We're getting the FCM token. It's like the device's unique identifier. I'm taking that token, I'm sending it up to the API server. On the API server, I've got a package installed to directly interface with FCM. I've got all my credentials in there, and I take that token, and on a delayed queue for 1 minute, I'll go ahead and push this now because it's going to take a minute. I'm going to just broadcast a message to this device specifically. Since the app itself, when it's open, just think about being on an SMS app, right? If you have it open, you're not going to want to get a push notification. So the devices have it. You could do like a local database notification or a badge or something inside the app, but we are not going to actually want to display anything inside of the app if it's open. So we actually say close the app. We're going to wait this minute, and we're going to see a push notification come in here on the device. Again, we got another 30 seconds to wait or something like that. And then I've got one more thing to show you before I wrap things up. Great job, Shane. Thanks, Simon. Oops, wrong one. What is going on? Sleep token tickets in Greensboro. Oh, look, we've got this little square up here. And if I pull this down, I can see thanks for testing NativePHP. So that's an actual push notification that came from the server through FCM. And it's really like for Android, all you have to do is drag in the file that FCM gives you, put it inside of your inside of the root of the Laravel application. It's different for iOS. We'll have that documented. And then just go to your config and change the push notifications permissions to true, and we can handle everything else for you. So there's that. But there's just one more thing. And let's make sure that this is all closed down. I have one of these. Actually, I have 50 of these. These are NFC chips. And it was really fun to actually play with this. But I wanted to just show you one thing. I'm just going to take this. I'm going to pop it to the back of the phone. And we're going to wait. And hopefully this works. And it did. That's it. That's my demo. Thank you so much for having me. Again, nativephp.com/mobile is where you can get all of the information on this. We're doing early access pricing for now. That goes through the end of May. We want to give as many people as much time to get in to start playing with this. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of APIs that we're building out. We're also working on some of the ones that are already here, making them more robust. For example, the vibrate function. You can pass intensity, duration, and is it a double vibrate? All these things that we want to make this as nice of an experience and what you would expect for an app built with Laravel. So that is my story. Thank you so much.
This was all good. I mean, all cool stuff, right? And the reverb stuff was like the comments were popping up like I mean, you were sending message from one Android device to another, right? To iPhone, and it's all PHP.
All PHP. It's all done with PHP. Reverb. Yeah, it's yeah. So if you want to think PHP is gonna die, I don't think so. We can do everything that anybody else can do, and we can do it without having to learn a new framework, without having to learn. I don't know React Native. I don't know Flutter. I've looked into them a little bit since starting this, but yeah, I think Simon and I are on the same mindset. It's like I don't want to have to learn something new. I just want to do what I always do and build desktop and mobile apps from Laravel.
Right. Of course. So should we take some questions from the audience?
Yeah, I would love to.
So let's start from okay. It's a bit simple, but it is like, how do you do this menu animation? I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, there's not really much code to show. The menu is actually that's just CSS. So that's using. I took the. I have a Tailwind UI license, and so I just use what's there, and yeah, that's just CSS animation.
hmm.
I guess it's Alpine, you know, if it's open or not, and then the animation stuff. So yeah, that's it.
So, in short, there is nothing native. It's just HTML, CSS, right?
That's correct. Because it's a web
Hmm.
view, any animations like that, you know, the moving emoji and all that stuff, that's going to be
Right,
whatever you can do. And I did look at some packages for like if you want to swipe from left to right to open things, there's some JavaScript packages that you can actually bring in to do that for you.
right. Hmm. One is like off topic, but yeah. So, what Mac you are using?
This is a Mac. Oh, what's it called? It's a oh my gosh, what is it called? It's the Mac Studio. I think it's an M3.
Hmm. Mac Studio.
Is
It's
that what it's
great. I
called?
mean, yeah.
Yeah. It's like the mini but taller, right? I think that's what it's called.
Hmm.
Max Studio. I've had it for a couple years.
Yeah. So one of the question was from me, and which is like, can you open front camera directly? I mean, from the native page.
So if it's something that iOS and Android allow, we absolutely can. Literally, there's no limitations as to what we can do eventually. Because at the end of the day, we're calling native Kotlin and Swift code from PHP. So yes, it can be done, and we can absolutely add that. I think that's what, you know, a lot of, we have a Discord channel. We encourage people to go in and talk and ask questions, and it's going to add to our roadmap and of things, you know, things that people want and are expecting to see, because we can't think of everything and do everything, you know, right now the way that it is,
Right.
but we can get a list going for sure.
Of course. So that is one uh, kind of question. Let me share with you. It's like how do justify having mobile app in a PHP than other frameworks such as React Native and Flutter?
How do I justify having a mobile app in PHP? I think that
Hmm.
there was a law, like another one of those natural laws, and it was like if it can be built in JavaScript, it will be built in JavaScript. I think, you know, 10 years ago, I remember hearing that a lot, and I think that we're kind of changing that, right? If it can be built in PHP, why not? Why not build in PHP? Of course, there's other frameworks, but you know, what if they stopped when people asked them, well, you can do this in Kotlin or you can do this in Java? Like, to me, it's a very fun project. Again, I think it goes back to Simon and mine alignment on, like, I don't want to learn React Native. I don't personally, I'm not a React guy. I don't like the JSX stuff. I'm a Vue guy. I've been doing Vue for a long time. Livewire kind of took over that for me. And, you know, like to have the React Native stuff, it's like, I don't want to have to learn that. But I have so many clients that I could gain by being able to offer native apps, right? So why not just do it in the language I already know and yeah, build something around that for the community.
Hmm. So of course, how is the state management things happening?
Whew, that's a interesting question. I think I would need more clarification on what you mean by state management.
Hmm.
Um, so there's a couple things. There's, you know, there's session, there's persistent session, there's non-persistent session. There's actually some work that Simon and I have to do in unifying the way that we're handling. For example, I'll just use like that token, that sanctum token as an example, right? Right now, if I close the app and reopen the app, I'll still be logged in because I
Hmm.
have a separate directory where I'm storing session, so that it is persisted. However, that's not exactly the right way to go about it. If you think about like a bank app, right? If I want to build a bank app, I don't want someone to be logged in every time they open it up, right? But if I build like a Facebook or Twitter or something, I don't want people to have to log in every time either. The right way to do that is already built into the way that the web would expect you to do things. It's to have a token. It's also to have a refresh token, so that if that session has expired, you use a refresh token and you get a new token, and you just handle it the way that things are already meant to be built. As far as like
Right.
files, storage, all that is, you just use storage facade just like you would. It goes into a persisted data file, so that when you close the app, it's all there. It just stays inside. If you clear cache or clear storage, obviously it's going to leave because it belongs to the app, but it's not gone when you just reopen the app. It's persisted.
Right. So another question is like, do I need any environment setup for native PHP
The
app?
key word there is new. So depends. Yes. If you don't have Android Studio set up, and if you don't have Xcode on Mac set up, you do have to get those going. There's also in the docs, there's a couple things you have to do for both. You have to, for Android, you have to have some env variables. So I use ZSHRC, and so like Java _ home has to be there. And then like you have to add to your path where platform tools is and stuff like that. Platform tools is for doing ADB. It's how we can detect which devices you have installed and which devices you have plugged in when you go to run the app. Once you have that done, though, we try to make that as easy as possible. There actually used to be like 6 other env keys for Android, but I did a lot of the work to guess some sensible defaults. So when you install Android Studio, if you install into the place that it wants to be, whether it's Windows or on Mac, it's going to just kind of work, but you still have those env keys there as optional in case you do want to override them. So you can go and set the env key to a different path for any of those things and be done with it.
Right. Okay, most of the questions are already answered by Simon in the comments. So I'm looking for the
Thanks, Simon.
questions.
Thanks, Simon.
which Okay, one question I should say that maybe it is already answered by Simon, but yeah, is Google Play or Apple Play allowed this app?
Yeah. So because of the way we built it, we don't actually have to worry. And I'll give you a quick story. So when Simon built the app that he demoed at Laracon, I took the same code. This is for iOS. I took the same code. I tweaked a little bit. I added this whole API authentication bit to it, and but it was essentially the same UI, some of the same logos and stuff like that. And I submitted it to the Play Store, and it got rejected. And so I was like, "Why is it rejected?" And they just said it's rejected. And I kept saying, "Why is it?" Like 4 or 5 times, like, "Why is it rejected?" And so one day they called me. Apple actually called me, and this is a good note for everybody out there. They called me and they were like, "Hey, this is whoever from Apple. We just want to talk about your app, and this is why it keeps getting rejected. We just want to talk to you about it." And I said, "Cool. Well, let me explain." And I'm like, hopefully this doesn't shoot me in our own foot. If we have to go around, like trick the app stores into letting these work, then I'd rather know sooner than later. But I said, look, we developed our own library for PHP so that we can build apps with Laravel. And he's like, "I don't know any of those words that you just said." I said, "Okay, basically it's like our code is proprietary. It's custom to the way that we did it." He's like, "Well, the only reason it got flagged is because it looks just like your friend's code." He didn't say my friend's. He couldn't tell me what app it was, but he's like, "It looks just like one that was just released not long ago." I was like, "All right, gotcha, no problem." Simon's got approved, I think within like 3 days or something like that. So there's no problem there. And then after explaining it to him, he was like, "Look, number one, if ever you want to talk to us in the comments, when you go to submit an app for approval, just say, 'Call me,' and they will call you within a few days. So just, be ready for them to call you." Number two, he said, "Nothing about this app looks like anything that would flag you at all, because it is just a php.c library that, and then the rest of that is like for Android, it's Java or C++ or Kotlin code. Like there's nothing around anything that would make it warrant any sort of anything else, right? It just will work." And as far as the Play Store, we've got an app right now. It's not an approval status. It's just going through this because I have the personal I have a personal account and it's a new account. They required me to go through 14 days of testing with beta testers. So I think as of today, I'm halfway through that. So by next week, it'll be out. We're going to put links to the App Store and the Google Play Store on the repo, and you'll be able to download it to your device. And there won't be any problems. If there are, like Apple said, say call me and they'll call you.
Yeah. So it will be last question, right? And it's what feature or a bug took your head up? I mean, lots of time. I mean,
There was one, and this is actually a really good place to talk about this. Is for me, it was CSRF and it was session tokens and getting all of that going, and cookies with with Android. There's a WebView cookie sort of manager, but it's kind of crap. And I saw there's some packages out there, but I didn't want to bloat the project either. So I took some of the best stuff that they were offering that I knew I needed and rolled kind of my own security for cookies, right? The problem with that, and the good thing to tell people, like, and Simon and I are going to bake this into the app at some point, or at least make it optional. You actually don't require CSRF, because if you think about it, you're not making calls to some other device or server someplace. It's all within the phone. You actually don't need cross script request forgery stuff, because there's nothing that's really going to attack you on your own device. Hypothetically, I guess that could be done, but we're going to make that an optional thing to either include or not include that, because you don't actually need that. So it's really just disabling the middleware, and we can do that for you pretty simply. But that one took me a few weeks. And then I fixed it, and then I went and I fixed something else, and I came back and it was broken, and that was a lot of time on the couch on my laptop trying to figure that out. So that was one of the big ones.
right. So yeah, I didn't wanted to take more questions, but I got one more interesting question in the comments. So should we go for that?
Sure, I got time. Yeah.
Ah, so it is like how native PHP will deal background service plus starting screen stuff. I think
Yeah.
it's stuff.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that there's a lot of things that Simon and I have talked about for background services. So Android offers scheduling tasks, right? We just have to build the wrapper around the scheduler inside of Laravel. And so that's not done now, but it will be done. And so we can say, set a timer for 10 minutes, close the app, and then have a local notification pop up, because you're actually
Okay.
using the stuff that's already built in. That's stuff that the device can already do, and that's stuff that Laravel already has the ability to do. We just have to build that bridge between the two. And then what was the second part of that? It wasn't just background
Hmm.
task. It was
Starting screen stuff. I mean, it can be like start app on the startup. I guess it can be that, right?
Yeah, so for Android, for right now, there's actually the way that works is like I background the unzip, migrate, and all that stuff. It's in the background, which means there's no front end, which means it would just go to a white or black screen depending on if you're in dark mode or not. So I just use some XML, just some basic XML stuff to just display that loading screen right now. That's something that we absolutely can customize, because it's just XML. So we can say, what's your brand, what's your colors, or if you even have like a loading GIF, I think we can get that in as well. Just for your app's identity, your branding, and make that all customizable to what you would expect it to be.
Okay, that's all cool. I mean, okay. One more question.
I've got time, no problem.
Yeah. So it is like, is there any difference between iOS and Android apps? So it is like some features are not there in Android and some features are not there in iOS, kind of.
Yeah. So again, Simon and I have we're very, very much aligned with how we want to tackle this. So right now, like I said, Simon took a lot of time to get things. I was actually farther ahead in Android on some things, but he's aligned us almost exactly identically. So we're both firing off the same events. We're both listening for those events. The Kitchen Store app will be a single, um, it is a single repository that has one code set for both devices, right? And that's the intention
Okay.
behind all of this. One code
Hmm.
for everything. We do want to build some blade macros so that you can say at Android or at iOS, right? And just maybe you
Hmm.
want to do a different UI for some things. But as far as the way that the code and the PHP functions and all that, that's going to be in line. And actually, even like developing this out, we're just going to make feature branches that are like, feature microphone or something. We'll both contribute code to that. When we're both satisfied, that's when it gets merged. So when we roll one thing out, it's for everything and it's going to be handled the same way. And that's, even if we take extra time for each one of these APIs to make it really, really nice and well documented and fully fleshed out, I think it's worth it, because then you never really have to revisit it unless the OS changes or something like that.
Right. Okay. One more interesting question. We are taking some questions, right? So I can go
I'm
ahead, right?
here. Yeah, please.
Hmm.
Yeah, give me 10 more. It's fine.
Okay. So yeah. So this is like for you, if you want to build a mobile app and desktop app, right, with the same feature, we have to code two projects, or it is very near one project. Yeah, kinda.
Yeah, I'm not really deep on the desktop stuff right now. However, I in talk like there's a lot of people have asked this question before too. The desktop app and the mobile apps must be different um, repositories for now, because we both kind of write to the same area. We both have similar sort of commands that could be merged, that could be brought together, but your UI is going to be different, and the functions that you call for desktop are going to be different than the functions that you're going to call for mobile anyway. So I don't think it actually makes much sense to do that. I would say that if you
Hmm.
are developing, kind of like I showed with the authentication, you're going to need a single API and backend, right, to handle authentication and any of the data that
Hmm.
you want to serve to both of them. That would definitely be, the same code. But I would have 3 or 4 technically repositories. I would have one for the API, I would have one for desktop, I would have one for mobile, and then one for a website if you want a website too.
Right. Right. So it should be like different projects, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
yeah, because I'm not gonna have a single API for desktop app login and mobile app login, right? Never. Right.
Correct.
Hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Hmm. Eh, so like I was ignoring this question, but lots of people are asking that can we have the repo of this project?
No, no, of course. So the way that it is right now, because we've been working on finalizing all the features for V1, getting the website ready for V1, getting all of the documentation ready for V1, finding last minute bugs, and getting everything aligned with everything. There right now, the repo's there, but it's got some things that we just have to refactor a little bit so that it's polished. And like I have like some some private things in that I have to take out for like Google JSON file, stuff like that I just have to refactor.
Right.
In fact, that's one thing that
Hmm.
you will have to, and that's, I haven't even talked to Simon about this, but one thing we have to figure out is like, if we're open sourcing, not if, but when we open source the kitchen sink, um, you know, biometric, I'm sorry, push notifications technically won't work unless you have, we'll have to make some stuff in the README for that. It will work. You just have to change your, you have to make sure that the FCM project that you create, it asks you for like your com.example.punyapal or whatever. It asks you for that. That has to be in your env. They have to align, and then you bring that Google JSON file into the app, into Laravel, into the root directory. At least for Android, it's a little different on iOS. But you also don't have access necessarily to the server, and that's something that we still have to debate about. Either opening up the kitchen sink API also so that you can install your own API, or open that up to like anybody could also touch the same server. And I don't know if we necessarily want people, thousands of people to hit the same authentication server. Not saying that we wouldn't, but we just haven't decided how to do that or if we want to do that or not. But absolutely, the whole point behind the kitchen sink app is to show everybody how to do everything. It's like not only are here the docs, but it's kind of like a secondary documentation site when you can actually see how to bring in the listener, how to call the function. You can download, install this on your own device, see that it works, and then make sure that your code is doing the same, conceptually the same things that that we're doing there.
Yeah. So is it possible to use workOS? Yeah.
Yeah. So the NFC tag actually kind of demonstrates how there's a difference between deep links and I forget what they're called. There's on iOS and on Android, they both have this concept of like these they're kind of like authenticated links. So the difference is this: I can do you're familiar with HTTP or HTTPS schema. You can say
Right.
punyapel : whatever you want to, and that's going to forward, if you register in with your device, that will forward whatever the path is into your Laravel routes, right? Your web routes. The problem with that is that iOS and Android cannot verify that punyapel : they can verify an HTTPS. So what they do for that scenario is they give you a well-known JSON file that you put actually on your server for a domain. So you could do punyapel.com, HTTPS : punyapel.com. If you have the app installed, it's going to, on both iOS and Android, this is just the way that works. It's going to redirect into that route on your app. You also can, which is really nice, you can prefix it with like a path. So you can create in Laravel, you can create a route group and say like this is open or app, like /app. So anything in the /app directory would be handled by your app. Anything else could just go to the website if you are serving a website and an app from the same place. So yeah, I mean, all of that is well, you were asking about something else, but I went on NFC, but it's essentially the same concept, right? We're
Right.
redirecting all these things. So
Right. The person who was asking also saying that problem with the config redirection, right? So he mentioned it as well. Okay. So okay. So do you wanna share anything before we end it?
no, I think the big news was like it's available now. So nativephp.com/mobile, you can go and sign up. If you're already signed up, you can just
Right.
follow the directions that are there. Again, docs are a little bit behind. We'll have those out in the next day or two anyway, before Friday. And no, I think Discord is a really good place. That's where Simon and I are hanging out, talking to people anyway. If there's
Right.
questions, comments, concerns, anything like that. As this grows, it's going to be harder to get to everybody, but for now, that's where we're at. And I would say, like, I would just ask to, like, if it's not in the docs, it's not done yet. So like we kind of have a priority list of like what we want to work on or what we think most people were going to need. I think GPS, I think Bluetooth, I think secure storage. I think those are the next three things that we are going to focus on. So like right now, the session token is not in a secure place. Not that that necessarily has to be, but that would demonstrate like we can create our own like storage or I'm not sure the right place to put that, but a good facade, Laravel facade, we make a driver for that. And then, you can say securely store this key value pair, right? And that way, it's encrypted on the device. You don't have to worry about that. And that we don't even have to worry about that because we're just offloading that to the way that the OS is doing things anyway. So yeah, anything outside of like what we already have done, you can ask about for sure. We love the questions and we love hearing about things that maybe we haven't even thought about yet. So but there is a roadmap in the docs that's coming out and there's no dates or priority set for that, but it's things that we already know that we want to and are going to work on soon.
Okay. So that was all good. Thanks for coming and for sharing everything you have done.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And everyone, thanks for joining. Right. Bye bye. See you guys. Yo.